For a former researcher, it's really exciting to see tutors take a really complex idea and break it down into these modules for young people to access. But now I couldn't imagine doing a role without some form of people management. It's the area that challenges and tests me the most, I think.
Hello there, I'm Sarah McCluskey, and this is Research Adjacent. Each episode, I talk to amazing research adjacent professionals about what they do and why it makes a difference. Keep listening to find out why we think the research adjacent space is where the real magic happens. Hello and welcome along to episode 49 of the Research Adjacent podcast. I'm Sarah McCluskey, and this episode my guest is Katrina Roberts. Katrina is Head of Tutor Engagement at the Brilliant Club. Now, if you haven't heard of the Brilliant Club, they're a charity which places PhD students in schools to support less advantaged pupils. Katrina's job is to recruit those researchers and make sure that they have such a great experience that they want to continue. We talk about why teaching young people can be a game changer for researchers' communication skills, and this is something that I can definitely verify from personal experience. Why tackling educational inequality is a topic close to her heart, and how the Brilliant Club have given her time and space to develop as both a person and as a manager. What I hope you won't hear during our conversation are all the building noises that Katrina and I had to contend with. She was very patient when I kept forgetting to unmute myself, so thank goodness for the joys of editing. Anyway, listen on to hear Katrina's story. Welcome along to the podcast, Katrina. It's lovely to have you here. I wonder if you could tell us a bit about what it is that you do.
Absolutely. So I work for an education charity called the Brilliant Club. We are an organisation that recruits and trains doctoral researchers and graduates to teach in state schools about their research or the research topics. In that role, in the organisation, I am the Head of Tutor Engagement, which involves managing the recruitment activities of our charity to reach a diverse range of doctoral researchers and graduates to teach on our programmes. It also involves thinking about the experience that our tutors have whilst working with us, making sure that they've got plenty of opportunities to engage with the different activities and that tutors want to stay with us and continue working with us. So more kind of like the retention side of the recruitment as well. The aim of our organisation is to support young people from less advantaged backgrounds to go on to university and succeed when they get there. So we've got a real kind of nice social justice mission about what we do, and it's really nice to get other researchers involved in what we do as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Really valuable stuff. So tell us a bit more about the kinds of things that your postdoctoral researchers are doing with school pupils.
So they will go into schools and teach about their research. So they get to design a module based on their own research, which is, as a former researcher, is incredibly exciting. I've worked at the Brilliant Club for 7.5 years now, and it still blows my mind, the different ranges of courses that go into schools, especially when it's in my own realm of research as well. It's just really nice to see. But what's even more exciting about it is the way that the young people interact with the content as well. You know, this is what's going on in universities. It's cutting edge research, and they're engaging with it, and they're asking questions, and they're writing assignments. So researchers go into school and teach those programs to those young people in school over 7 weeks, and they mark the assignments, that they kind of give them grades based on their university system as well. And obviously there's loads of training that goes along with that as well. So it's a really exciting opportunity for researchers to get involved with. There's also the opportunity to teach pre-designed courses as well. If you're not kind of wanting to deliver your own course, then our researchers can go in and deliver other courses. So still bringing in that research expertise and the academic skills that come along with it, but perhaps not their own research if they choose not to do that.
Excellent. So what age of young people are they working with?
So from primary all the way up to A-level, so from around 10, 11 years old all the way up to 17. So yeah, there's a whole range of age groups, whole range of courses, and to see the way the different age groups interact with our programme is really, really exciting.
Yeah, I bet. And I bet some things. So one thing that's coming to mind, I've worked with lots of researchers, and sometimes they find it challenging to explain the research to their peers, let alone to primary school age children. So what sorts of support do you give them to help with that?
So there is an assessment process to become a tutor. So part of that is we're looking for an ability to communicate research. We're not looking for a teaching experience. We're looking for that kind of that awareness that you've got to do something to teach to young people. But we provide really kind of rigorous training. There's a whole process to design your own course where we sort of look at it and give feedback on the pitch. So is it pitch too low? Is it pitch too high? And the academic challenge. So are they asking them to read sometimes our tutors get them to read primary articles. Are they asking them to do too much? That sort of thing. And we kind of go back and forth on that a little bit. And then when they're in school, if they're finding that the pupils just really aren't kind of getting it, then we will obviously work with them at that point as well. But we don't expect any prior teaching experience. So for a former researcher, it's really exciting to see tutors take a really complex idea and break it down into these modules for young people to access. The research that's going on in universities right now, it's amazing to see. And it's amazing to see so many researchers each year do that and take on that challenge.
Yeah. And I bet that's a really valuable skill then for them as they go forward. So whether it's teaching in a university setting or whether it's, just communicating their research more broadly.
Yeah, exactly. So I like to think that teaching on the Scholars Programme is going to set researchers up in all manner of careers. So I did a lot of public engagement and outreach when I was doing my PhD, and I didn't do the Scholars Programme, but I always say that being able to articulate in an interview setting really clearly, this is what I did, this is what I got out of it, and this is how I'm going to use it going forward, it's invaluable, that experience. And I think there's nothing like teaching in a school to young people about your research to equip you with those skills to think on the spot, to be able to communicate succinctly an idea in sort of an accessible way. It's a really challenging experience for that, but you're going to be able to take it through in anything you do. I often think about it. So I don't communicate research now. It's not my job. I do communicate complex ideas all the time, whether that's my own idea that's complex in my head, or whether I'm trying to kind of distill an idea that someone else has given me. And I still fall back on those techniques of thinking about who I'm talking to, thinking about the essentials of what they need to know, and being able to pivot and explain things in different ways if the way I've started explaining it doesn't land. So I still use those skills now. So yes, absolutely. Whether you want to go into teaching or not, doing something like the Scholars Programme as a researcher is going to equip you in so many different ways in terms of communication.
Yeah, I always think it's even if you're, like you say, even if you're not thinking about it in terms of teaching or public engagement, just writing better funding applications, better job applications,
Absolutely.
Whatever it is. Yeah, it's just really valuable stuff, isn't it?
100%.
So you said there that you have a lot of people going through this programme. What kinds of numbers are we talking about?
So each year we recruit around 500 to 600 researchers, and we work with, so obviously we've got a pool of tutors. Once a tutor comes to work with us, they're with us until they choose not to. So we have like a big pool of researchers, which is around 1,1400. And each year we have about 400 to 500 going to schools to teach across the academic year. And we work across England and Wales as well. So it's quite a big operation.
Yeah, that's one thing I was thinking. So your role is all about engaging and working with those tutors. That's a lot of people to kind of keep tabs on.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's for me, there's quite a lot of kind of like data involved in that and sort of mapping where people are. Because one of the things with the way we work is, so obviously researchers are mainly in kind of your areas where your universities are, but that's not necessarily where our schools are. So that matching piece of being able to go, right, well, we've got a bunch of researchers in Bristol, for example, but all of our schools are in the outskirts and the surrounding areas. So how are we going to approach that? And do we need to try and do some outreach to get researchers that may be from Bristol University, but don't live there and things like that? And Bristol was just an example there. But yeah, it's a really interesting conundrum, that kind of whole where researchers are versus where our schools are. It's a very varied role, very varied.
I bet it is. And you've said there that you're involved in the tutor recruitment, but I'm just wondering a bit as well about the schools. Is this something, just in case anybody's listening who like knows a school, do you approach the schools or do the schools approach you? A bit
of a mix. So sometimes schools will come to us. So through word of mouth, teachers are very good at talking to each other and kind of sharing that knowledge about what they can bring into schools. We also obviously do some direct outreach and marketing. We have a school partnerships team. So if anybody does know a school that's interested in taking on the programme and having it in their school, they can just go to our website and there's some information there about who to get in touch with. And it'll be someone in our school partnerships team, and you can book in a phone call and discuss what is involved for a school.
That's a brilliant overview of what Brilliant Club does and all the different aspects of the work. You've said there, you've hinted at a couple of things. You said you've been at Brilliant Club for quite a while, but there's also been talk of a research background as well.
Yes.
So maybe you could tell us a bit about your journey and how you ended up where you are.
So I did my PhD at the University of Sheffield between 2012 and 2016 in reproductive medicine, specifically sperm biology. When I was in my writing up period, I did an internship at a local SME that was in the knowledge exchange arena. So they had an online platform where they worked with universities to upload early stage research, and we would sort of reach out to private sector pharmaceutical companies, a big pharma, to sort of link them up. So I did that for 5 months, and I got some funding from the university to do that internship. I did it full time whilst writing my thesis. Wouldn't recommend.
That's very good.
But what was interesting about that is it allowed me to be able to articulate stakeholder engagement experience, because I was the person that would be reaching out to the companies, but also going back to the universities and saying, sort of as an account holder type responsibility. So I did that, and then from there I got the job at the Brilliant Club and just went straight onto that. Hadn't even vivored, and I started as a program officer, so working on our specific program, the Scholars Program, and that role involved matching the tutors with the schools and doing all the liaising with the schools, with the tutors. But at that time, that role encompassed a lot of everything. So I did a bit of recruitment, I did a bit of business development, so selling the program to schools, I trained the tutors. So we were much smaller then, we were about 25 to 30 people, so everybody sort of did a little bit of everything. And then I was promoted within a year, I became a regional manager, and I managed the team then. And then it was 2021, we did a bit of a restructure and sort of we centralised a lot of the functions, and that's when I became head of tutor engagement and sort of focused purely on recruitment. So yeah, that's sort of my journey. So I've been at the Brilliant Club for 7.5 years now, which it flies by.
Yeah.
Especially when COVID was in the middle of there as well.
Yeah, that's thrown everybody's timelines out,
Exactly,
hasn't it?
yeah.
So you said it sounded like when you were doing your PhD, or when you were kind of finishing your PhD, you already had a bit of a sense that you wanted to go and do something a bit different. Would that be fair?
Yeah, so I always knew that it was a long shot if I would stay in academia. So because of my background, so I come from a very typical working class background, first in my family to go to university. The unstable nature of academia in terms of fixed term contracts, because of being a scientist, you move from one postdoc position to another. And at the time when I was doing my PhD, there was this idea that in order to have a successful academic career, you had to go and work abroad. It didn't appeal to me. I don't deal well with instability in that way because of my background, and sort of I want to know where my next paycheck's coming from, if you like. So I always knew it was a long shot. I did toy with the idea, I applied for a few postdocs. If I could have stayed in my research lab for another 4 years doing the same research, I would have done. But that opportunity didn't come up. I did apply for some academic fellowships as well, but I didn't have publications because it's hard to get publications when you're doing your PhD. Yeah. So I sort of had that going on, but I kind of always did lots of outreach and public engagement, mainly because I felt a bit of a moral imperative to do it, because I was funded by a charity, and it was really important to me to be able to communicate what I was doing to the people that funded me. I was partly funded by a charity, sorry. So I did all of that, and then realised I actually really enjoyed communicating science. So then I did lots more of it. And my PhD supervisor was really big in like science communication and research communication as well. So I had his full support to do that. So yeah, quite early on, I realised that I probably would pursue a career in sort of research adjacent type area where I would still be involved in research in some way, but I'd be able to use the skills that I'd got, but not necessarily doing research. I do miss being in the lab, but it wasn't for me.
Yeah. And do you feel that what you learned on your PhD, not necessarily in terms of the topic, because I'm guessing sperm biology doesn't come up that much day to day.
Definitely not.
But was that experience valuable for what you're doing now?
Absolutely. So for my programme officer role, at the time at the Brilliant Club, you had to have a PhD or a qualified teacher, teacher qualification, to do that role. So first and foremost, I wouldn't have got the role without that, because that was the requirements at the time. It's changed a little bit since then because of the way the roles changed. But back then, because we were I would be training researchers to deliver their research. It made sense that you would need to either have that experience yourself of doing a PhD or some research degree, or be a teacher. So I wouldn't have got the role without the qualification. But I use it all the time, like all the skills. I've already touched on the communication element of it. I use that all the time. The ability to look at data and be like, oh, first of all, find problems in it. So like, there's something wrong here. And I'm not saying we have a research and impact department, and their ability to manipulate large sets of data is way above and beyond what I can do. But for what I need, my abilities in manipulating data and sort of analysing trends in data, which is what I did for my PhD as a biologist, that is so helpful. And I think the biggest thing that I identify is processes. So I love designing and implementing processes and making them better. And I think it's because it's like an experiment to me. Like, I think about what I want to achieve at the end, or what I want to see, and then I go backwards. And that's what I did. That's what you do when you're designing experiments. You're like, well, okay, what's my hypothesis? What do I need to find out? How am I going to design something to get me there? And kind of see designing and implementing processes a bit like that. And I think that's why I enjoy it.
Oh, interesting. And it's great to hear about the way that you can find those bits of skills in different jobs, because people do often just think, research, that's only valuable when you're in a lab or, whatever it is that you're doing.
Absolutely, yeah. I think, and it's probably worth saying that I can only say that upon reflection, right? So like, I would never have been able to say when I was doing my PhD, this skill is going to be useful, because I didn't know what the way I would use it outside of research. So I think it's perfectly acceptable not to know how you're going to use things, but I am able to see how it's useful in the day-to-day of what I do. I'm sure somebody without a PhD would be able to do my job, but they'd probably do it in a different way and maybe have different strengths. But for me, those are the things that I can bring to it, and I think they come from doing a research degree.
Yeah, excellent. So I'm sure that over the time, whether it's your PhD or the time at Brilliant Club, there's a couple of things that stand out that you're really proud of. I wonder if you could give us an example or two.
So during my PhD, I think the things that I probably am most proud of are the awards I won for communicating my research. So whether that be academically or non-academically. So I won, in my first year doing my PhD, I won an award at an academic conference for talking about a method that I developed. And then I also won, I can't even, what's the title of it? At Sheffield, there was a public engagement award for public engagement activity, and me and a couple of colleagues designed a board game which was about teaching kids reproduction through a board game. And I won the prize that year for that. And we kind of went out to events and sort of did it out there in the public. So I think those are the things that I am most proud of, because they flow through to the things that I'm also proud of in this role, in sort of supporting researchers to communicate their research to young people, because knowledge is not just for the academy, it's for everybody. And I think I sort of laid the foundations of that passion during my PhD, and I'm still able to do it in a very indirect way now, because I don't train the researchers anymore, but supporting as many researchers as possible to get that experience. And then in my job now, weirdly, the thing I'm most proud of is that when I became a manager, I quickly realised that you can't just manage people without understanding the impact that you can have. So I sort of went away and did a lot of self-reflection on what it meant to be a manager of people and the impact that you can have on people as a manager, and sort of made sure that I was really self-reflective about it and making sure I was adopting good practices. I think a lot of people become people managers with a promotion when they might not necessarily have wanted to manage people or be very good at it. And I think we see that in lots of sectors. And I think for me, I wanted to be really aware of that. So I think that's the thing I'm most proud of at the Brilliant Club is because that was completely self-directed. So I did that myself. We have a professional development allocation at the Brilliant Club, so days and budget. So I used those days, so 5 extra days a year, which I could use to work on my professional development. And there was a small budget to do a leadership and management qualification. So I did that using that time. And I think it's really helped me become what I hope to be a good manager of people and just really help people get the most out of working at the Brilliant Club. Like, it's a great place to work, but we all know that life gets in the way, things get in the way, and just helping them navigate that and get the best out of working here and being able to focus on their own professional development. So I've been managing people for 6 years now, and I can't imagine not doing it. But if you'd have asked me when I was doing my PhD if that was something that would be a high priority in my career, I'd have been like, oh no, I'm not that bothered. But now I couldn't imagine doing a role without some form of people management, for sure, because it's the area that challenges and tests me the most, I think, which is really important to me.
It sounds like you're not somebody to shy away from a challenge as well. So with you're saying that it's amazing that you get this protected time and budget for professional development. I think a lot of people listening, perhaps in universities, might be a little bit jealous of that. Yeah. You said that you went and did a course that helped support you. Was that sort of internal course, or was that?
No, it was I did it through FutureLearn, but it was actually through the Chartered Management Institute, and the awarding body was the OU. So they don't run it anymore, but essentially I did a series of modules which led to I think it was a diploma, a level 5 diploma in leadership and management. I first got the certificate and then sort of upgraded it, and it was just a series of modules with some assignments at the end. I don't think they offer it anymore because I've looked at it recently for a colleague. But yeah, it was external to my organisation.
Yeah, that's fantastic, because I think you're right. I think certainly it happens a lot in organisations that people get promoted or even just kind of find themselves managing people without either training or support.
It usually comes with an upwards move, right? If you move upwards, you're going to take on responsibility of managing somebody when that might not be what you wanted, but it just comes part and parcel with the role. And I can't remember the exact stat, but it's like the top 3 cited reason why people leave a job is because of like poor line management. And that's such a shame. A shame. So I just wanted to make sure that I was like always really reflective about my practice and the type of leader I am and what I want to be and the way I can deal with difficult situations and things like that. And one of the things that I used it for was when I became a regional manager, I set up a training program for new officers, because the training that we offered, we worked in a regional structure. It was quite disparate and people were getting some training and others not. So I worked on sort of developing a training program that is what I think is still used now, or elements of it, that was just a bit more systematic and used some of the principles that I'd sort of learned on that leadership and management program to set officers up well for the role, because it's quite a demanding role. And that I was really proud of that, being able to use those skills to be able to do that and kind of push something forward that would hopefully help people in my organisation.
That sounds like your team are very lucky to have you and that you take managing them so seriously, which is fantastic. I think you've listened to some episodes, so you know that I do like to ask my guests this question, which is, if you had a magic wand, what would you change, though, about the world that you work in?
So I think I went quite specific with this question and thought about something that I would love to do at the Brilliant Club for our researchers that we don't have the resource to do. So like I said earlier, we have about between 1,400 and 1,500 tutors that work with us or have applied to work with us and been successful. And currently we don't have a mechanism to get them all together. You know, we used to do in-person training, but there's no appetite for that anymore post-COVID. And I would love to offer a free day where everybody could get together and share best practice, share expertise, hear from some of our really successful tutors on what they get out of the program, how they see it benefiting them, get some people that used to do our program and explain how they've used that experience. But also there's so many elements to the Brilliant Club that aren't just programmatic. So we have a consulting team who are former researchers or still current researchers, actually, who work with universities and other charities to run consultancy projects that are mainly education based. And if you'd have asked me when I was doing my PhD what a consultant was, I'd have had not a clue. So being able to showcase the work that they do, get them to talk about the skills that are important to do that and the breadth of stuff that they're involved in. We also have a communities team. So we run something called Parent Power, which is all about giving parents in localities the power to affect change to do with potentially education in their areas for their young people. And there's so many skills that come along with being able to do that are so useful for PhDs and academic life that I just would love to kind of get everybody together and share all the different facets of what the Brilliant Club does and share it with researchers. And it's part of my big grand ambitions that I have of thinking that the tutors that come to work with us will be future academics. Sometimes they will be. Lots of them might go on to choose to do something else, but some might stay in academia. And if they're laying the foundations early on in their career of knowing about the inequality we have in education in this country, learning the skills that's required to tackle it, and they'll take that forward in the academy and hopefully contribute to policy changes in their university or the culture in their universities around inclusivity. And I think we already do that, obviously, through our mission and the fact that tutors to come work with us. But I just think being able to get everybody together and sort of really capitalise on that movement of all these researchers that come and work with us for our mission together in one place, sharing stories, sharing expertise. I just think it would really accelerate that. So that's what I would do if I had a magic wand. But yeah, because I would obviously want to offer it for free because people can't, there's no money floating around for researchers to do to things, is there?
No. That does sound, I mean, that doesn't even seem that lofty a goal. I feel that you should, we should be making this happen. There is just, I do think there's a magic about getting people in a room. I think it's one of the things, as you say, it's a shame that there's no appetite for face-to-face training and things like that after COVID, because it's just not the same online, is it? The relationships, that sense of connection to the organisation and the mission. I think, you're right.
That's exactly it. We offered it, and we carried on offering a virtual one and an in-person one. So we run 2 every term, 2 training events. And by and large, the virtual one was the biggest attended. And I think we're seeing that across the sector as well, aren't we? Where engagement for in-person things is much lower than virtual.
Lower, but I think it's coming back. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. I mean, I do get the, environmental arguments and time arguments. But as I say, there's nothing like really deliberately taking that time, ring fencing it, saying this is what I'm going to do with this time because it's important, and it's important that I build these relationships. Yeah.
Definitely.
Excellent. Do it. Make it happen.
Or if my CEO listening.
Yeah. Well, I think we should think about wrapping up our conversation now, but thank you so much for coming along to have a chat. If people want to find out more about you or the work you do, where would you direct them? So you can find the Brilliant Club on Twitter or LinkedIn, and we've got a really good website as well. But you can also find me on Twitter. What is my Twitter handle? I think it's at Katrina Roberts TBC. Okay. Well, I'll find it and put it in the show notes. I'm pretty sure that's it. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. But yeah, best place is website, to be honest. Yeah. Fantastic. I'll get all those linked and put them in the show notes. Thank you. So just for me to say thank you so much for coming along and taking the time to have a chat. Thank you. Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed it. Thanks for listening to Research Adjacent. If you're listening in a podcast app, please check you're subscribed and then use the links in the episode description to find full show notes and to follow the podcast on LinkedIn or Instagram. You can also find all the links and other episodes at www.researchadjacent.com. Research Adjacent is presented and produced by Sarah McCluskey, and the theme music is by Lemon Music Studios on Pixabay. And you, yes you, get a big gold star for listening right to the end. See you next time.